Business Advisory Council Town Hall meeting. I'm going to take a brief moment and tell you about how and why the Advisory Council was formed by the School of Global Business. Shortly after I arrived in June of 2014, what happened is I was met by, or the chairman of the trustees, the Council of Trustees, Chris Vandeveld at the time, said, "I need to meet with you, Ala." And I said, "Okay, let's meet." So he met with me and he says, "I'd like to have an advisory council for the School of Global Business." Now, he would also like to have an advisory council for a lot of the schools, but I think specifically for the School of Global Business, it was very important. So having worked in previous positions at other universities where I had advisory councils, I said, let's do it. One of the first people that I met when I came here was Linda Conlon, who's the president of the World Trade Center of Greater Philadelphia. And I have to say that she invited me to her office, and I remember talking to her whole staff, and all of a sudden she looked at me and she goes, "I love your vision. I just love their vision for what, for the School of Global Business." So almost immediately she asked me to be part of the Leadership Council of the World Trade Center of Greater Philadelphia. Well, through those connections and through a lot of different connections, I think Bill came to me and he says, "When would you like to have an executive come and talk to your students?" I graduated from Beaver College, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then there was Anthony, and we'll introduce all of them. But Anthony, there was a student who came to me who said, "You've got to meet my boss. I'm doing an internship. You've got to meet him." So, of course, that's how I met. So, through this process, I have met some incredible people. But here's what they have in common. They share my vision for the School of Global Business. They are all passionate about making a difference in their communities. And they are all kind, giving individuals who will provide their special talents to move the School of Global Business on a trajectory to excellence.
Ms. Haber co-founded Delaware Valley Financial Services, which was an administrator to the insurance industry. So working with leaders in both insurance and financial services sectors, the Delaware Valley Financial Services was instrumental in establishing national administrative standards for annuity processing. An advocate of empowering women in this month of Women's History, great ads on TV, I've been saying, Ms. Haber was honored as Woman Business Owner of the Year and as a woman making history by the National Association of Women Business Owners. She was chair of the Center for Women's Business Research in Washington, D.C. She was a longtime trustee. Ms. Haber was the first alumna to serve as chair of the board in the university's history. During her tenure, she was active in the committees for finance and academic affairs. She earned a Bachelor of Arts in English, and I think I started teaching a year or two before that in psychology, so we didn't really cross paths. This May, Ms. Haber will be honored and will honor Arcadia by joining this prestigious list of honorary degree recipients. She will earn the degree Doctor of Humane Letters. We're excited for her, but we are excited for us. Before I turn the podium over to her, let me say one word about the Business Advisory Council, which was already, a little bit of its history was already described by Alan. You may be aware that of this idea that the universities are often construed as the ivory tower up on the hill also including ID-colored buildings, and so here we are up at the top of the hill. This metaphor implies that students and faculty climb a hill to that ivory tower. It's a bit of an old-fashioned metaphor, but common enough. A newer, better metaphor that I see regularly now is that of the university in the town square. So in that town square, presumably, the university learns more about the world that it inhabits, better than it did when it was an ivory tower. So I see the School of Global Business not only embraces the idea that the university is located in the town square, but it seeks through its advisory council, which is rooted in the town square, guidance toward meeting its academic goals. Lois.
Thank you. That's quite an introduction. Welcome to all of you. It's very exciting for me to be here today because a School of Global Business, or even a business school, was my dream about 15 years ago for this university. So the fact that we're here, that we are trying to expand it, is extraordinarily exciting for me. So, contrary to what Dr. Nodine did, I'm not going to read the biographies of this esteemed group. We have an hour, and I know your questions and the conversation are going to be very, very important. So you have on your seats biographies of several of the people on the council. These are enthusiastic leaders. These are people who have great depth of knowledge in large companies, entrepreneurial companies. Some of them have seats in both worlds and have succeeded in both. As you read these biographies, which only scratch the surface of what these people have done, you will see their accomplishments. You will see that they are here to share their insights with you, and it's not something that happens every day. So I'm grateful to them. I had not met any except Susan Saxer, who I will introduce a second, because she and I were our classmates a long time ago. She was an honor student, I was not. When go by Dr. Wilson. When Al came to me about chairing this advisory council, I was surprised because she already had a council. She already chosen the people that she wanted to be on the council. She said, but, and this was so key, none of them have any affiliation with Arcadia University. And Susan came later, so none of them did. And so I was curious as to why they would be interested. And so I have had lunch and 10 pounds trying to meet these people and find out what about Arcadia University was interesting to them. And what I found out is that they love the global niche. It intrigues them. And they want to help transform this school into a strong contender in the national business school arena. And that's a pretty awesome goal. And so, I was actually sitting in the car when Al called and asked me to do this, and she sent me an email with all their names and what they were doing. And I said, you know what, I retired as chair of the university. It was a big job. I loved it, but, my time is over. And my husband is sitting next to me saying, oh, you're going to love this. He said, you really have to do this. So I am very privileged to work with these people. Every one of them was inspirational. Every one of them was really smart. Every one of them is kind and generous. So it's been a lot of fun, and I haven't seen them as much as I would like to. So I will tell you in the order of, they're answering questions that you submitted, as I understand. So the order that they're going to be answering the questions, and I'm sure this will be a dialogue at some point, is Dan Fisher, Linda Conlon, Phil Platt, Bill Richards, Anthony Mayer, and Susan Saxon. And Dean Wilson will lead our panelists, and what I hope will be very energetic conversation.
Thank you, Lois. I remember when you and I talked, and You said, how the heck did you get these people? I said, I just found the most wonderful people that, were very giving, had a great sense of humor, because everybody knows I have a great sense of humor. At least I hope they know. And so I said, I can't even imagine not having you to lead this group. So anyway, let's do the questions. The first question will be to Dan Fisher. Dan, what specific job skills do employers look for in an entry-level opening within the field of whatever it is, sales, marketing, research, accounting, human resources, and administration? What are the skills for entry-level positions?
Well, I think it's always funny because everybody says, I try to get a job, they say, do you have any experience? And I don't have any experience, I can't get a job. If I can't get a job, I can't get experience, and it's this big, hamster circle that you just go round and round and round. So a lot of what I do, and I love how it was phrased here, is I don't necessarily look for experience, but I look for skills. I look for skills, I look for traits, I look for experience, I look for passion. Those are the things I'm looking for. Now there's all soft skills that you can get this out of, but probably the main skill that's most important is communication. Listening, understanding, being able to communicate things out. So that's a soft skill that is probably pretty necessary. These days it's computers, you guys all know that, you're in the middle of it, so you have to have some kind of technology. That's almost a given these days. We also want to look at teamwork, how do you get along with other people? So I'm looking at are you social? What have you done outside of maybe work? So while you're in college, say, what were the outside interests that you were doing? Those are important to me. Because I work in a global field, and I have since I was 17 years old, I always want to know if you have a passport. That tells me a whole lot. And then I want to know where you've been. So we'll start our conversations that way. But some of the things that I'm talking about as far as and then analytical skills, those will go across all these jobs. I don't care if it's accounting, finance. At an entry level, we're not really looking for so much experience in a particular field, but we're looking at general things. I will try to stay away from words such as and like, if you're interviewing. That's just a little bit of recommendation as I sit when I'm interviewing these days. I think some of the other skills that are probably necessary and that you can actually communicate more in an interview than you can on a resume is loyalty. I think that's something that you can communicate by things that you did in the past. If you didn't have any job experience, draw on some of the experiences you did, whether it was 4-H, whether it was, running a 301c, volunteering is another one that's really good. So what that does is, as a job interviewer, it tells me a little bit about you and your passion, because I'm not necessarily looking for experience. I look for somebody who's going to fit in on my team at an entry level, somebody who's got growth potential within there, and something that I know is going to match the interests that we have and get along with the people that we have in the group. So.
Thank you. Linda, what are your top 3 recommended non-textbook reading materials that would help in personal development? I said personality development, but I think it's more in, I don't know if we can develop our personality. That's pretty tough, but I think in personal development.
Thank you, Dean Wilson. First of all, I want to express my appreciation to you and to our chair, Lois, for offering me this opportunity to be part of this council. I don't feel a stranger at all to Arcadia. In fact, in this very room, over a year ago, almost 2 years ago, we had international representatives from some 20 some odd countries who were meeting with companies in the region to really chart out their international strategies, and students had an opportunity to observe those meetings, and will have the same opportunity thanks to your vision and your leadership this September. It's what we call Pennsylvania International Week, and I would really check with Dean Wilson and put that on your calendar, because if you want to see international trade in action, that's really the place to be. And thank you, Ala, for your vision, for your partnership with us. Okay, you must know that whenever I go into a bookstore, whenever I go online, what do I gravitate to? personal development books. I gravitate towards leadership and management books, as well as biographies. So this is a very, very good question for me, and I thought to myself, okay, amongst all the books that I've read, those that I am now reading, what would I recommend to you? And I guess I would start out with a book that I read over 30, almost 40, ooh, that dates me, oh, I hate saying that, but 30 years ago. And I look back at the book, and I looked to taking some excerpts from the book. It's called The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. Now, it was published long before many of you were born. That was in 1959. There have been several reprints of the book. And since that time, quite frankly, there have been a lot of books written about how important thinking is to really achieving your goals and how you frame situations. But this was a small book. I read it about the time that I was just in my own business. I had my own small family-run business in Massachusetts at the time. And so I read this book, and some of the excerpts are as follows. When you believe something can be done, really believe, your mind will find the ways to do it. Believing a solution paves the way to solutions. Look at things not as they are, but as they can be. Visualization adds value to everything. A big thinker always visualizes what can be done in the future. He isn't stuck with the present. Now, some of you may say, oh my gosh, Linda, that's very trite. Of course I know that. You gotta think positively, all that. But really, putting this into practice as a discipline, especially when you hit those bumps, especially when you meet those challenges, and when you think of it, every successful person that you've met, whether it's in business, whether it's a star athlete, and we're now on the way to the Final Four, aren't we now? And look at those teams. I mean, my gosh, Temple, those young men were so excited. Well, I'll bet whether it's through the coach or through themselves, they visualized what success could be. And I have to say that I try to remind myself that I should do that as well. So that influenced me when I was just starting to run my own business, and then I went on to a career in Washington, D.C., and now is head of the World Trade Center of Greater Philadelphia. But that is a little book, even though it's some years old, that you may want to go back to and read. And the next book is entitled Good Profit. Sometimes you don't hear the same words together, do you? But it's Good Profit. How creating value for others built one of the world's most successful companies, and that's by Charles Koch. There are two brothers that run Koch Industries. Now, you may have heard of them. You may have heard of them tied to political campaigns. But what you have not heard a lot about is the fact that they have run, and Charles in particular, a very, very successful company. I think it's made up of about 8 different companies. In fact, he started with the company in 1961. He joined his father's Wichita-based company. It was then valued at $21 million. 6 years later, he was named chairman of the board and CEO, and today, Koch's estimated worth is $100 billion, making it one of the largest private companies in the world. And I like their mission statement. Life made better, it's what we do. Koch's integral in creating the essentials that benefit daily life the most. Food, shelter, clothing, transportation. Yet we don't stop there. They have 100,000 employees worldwide, 60,000 in the US, and they strive to make life even better in innovative ways that set industry best practices for quality and responsibility. And some of the strategies or tenets that he mentions in his book, he talks about crafting a vision for how a business can thrive in spite of increasingly rapid disruption and ever-changing consumer values. Select and retain a workforce that possesses both virtue and talent, the first of which is more important for long-term success. Create an environment of knowledge sharing. Award employees with ownership and decision rights. Motivate all employees to maximize their contributions by effectively structuring incentives so employees' compensation is limited only by the value they create, not budgets or company-wide knowledge or company-wide policy. What I like about this is definitely there's an emphasis on the team, on employees, on the company as a whole. I haven't finished reading the book, but I certainly intend to. And that led me to my third recommendation. And I was just in the Detroit airport this past weekend, and I noticed this book, and of course I immediately picked it up. It's called The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni, and why organizational health trumps everything else. You know, a lot of companies look, okay, my marketing strategy is off. Do I have the right product, the right technology? Okay, let me go try to fix things there. But what Patrick is saying is you gotta look inside, and that he says organizational health will one day surpass all other disciplines in business as the greatest opportunity for improvement and I'll underscore this, competitive advantage. So it's the health of the organization itself. And what does he mean by that? He says that there's no better way to achieve profound improvement in an organization than by attacking the root causes of dysfunction, politics, and confusion. So it's looking at things as basic as how do I communicate? What is the culture? What is, how much do our employees work as a team? How well do we communicate? Do we have too many meetings? Are the meetings worthless? All things that focus on the health of the organization itself. So that is one book that I would really recommend. I think my time may be out now.
Thank you, thank you. Did everybody get those books? Bob, what is or was the most challenging part of your job? And tell us what your job was, and tell us why it was so
Well, the
challenging.
most challenging part was going to work on Monday morning after an Eagles game. But no, I was part of a company who, when I started, we had 70 people, and I just left BDP, where we're over 4,000. And we've grown unbelievably. It's really unreal to see it in front of you, how a company can grow. But it took a lot of people, a lot of time, a lot of effort. So I was real lucky to get involved with BDP International. And actually, I'll tell you a story of how I got involved with BDP. Was I just graduated high school, and a friend of mine was working, and they got the 5th of Walnut, and an old man had hurt his foot. And he said, Bob, we need a messenger for 2 weeks. Would you want to run around and deliver papers? I said, yeah, sure, why not? So BD and P, who were both Downey in person, they sat on the windowsill. And they would watch me run up and down 5th Street and come back and run back. And so anyway, Jerry Donahue got me one day and he said, Bob, why are you always running? I said, well, that's what they told me to do. And I just, they just seen the effort, and I was lucky enough to get involved with them, really. But it was all, I went around the country doing all kind of training, from hazardous materials, and I can tell you young guys, don't play chicken with truckers. Let them do what they got to do, especially when it's school. But from hazmat to letters of credit to bank, international banking, currency exchange, getting to know all the regulations circling around importing and exporting. It's amazing, amazing. But you do have to be careful. You have to keep everything above reproach. You can get yourself in trouble real easy if you're not careful with what you're doing. But I'm just going to tell one more story and I'll pass it off. How things change, especially young guys. Pay attention to current events. Years ago, Vietnam was on our hit list. We had no business at all with being in Vietnam. And now, it's unbelievable the amount of business we're having with Vietnam. Cuba is the next country. And who's to say after that what's going to happen over in Africa? They're looking to do everything they can over in Africa with all the countries. So just pay attention to your current events, so you never know where things can happen. And if you hustle, you'll see, people will appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob. Susan, what was the most difficult part of your job? And if you could change what makes the job difficult, What would you do or what would you leave the same because you want to shape it in a positive way?
Okay, everybody, I am now going to do something you can never do with an employer, but you can do at Arcadia. And that is say, I'm going to flip the script a little bit on you. Okay? And we're going to start with this. How many people in the room have had some kind of job? I know these people. Okay. All right. You have to raise your hand on this. How many have had a bad boss? Keep your hands up if there are multiple yeses. How many have worked with a coworker who was either lazy, didn't do the work to get the job done on time, complained all the time, etc.? How many have had that as a good coworker? How many? Exactly. I got two hands up. How many people have been given a job to do, and you haven't been given the resources, and you haven't been given the time to do it, but you're told to do it anyway? Is there any, now there's only 3 questions. Is there anything that somebody has had as a difficulty that I haven't mentioned, sort of one way or another? Anybody? Okay. So I'm going to do 2 levels of message here. First of all, let me just tell you a little bit about me. I'm going to tell you the really impressive stuff, and then I'm going to tell you where I started. My exposure has been working with IBM in worldwide arenas with Bank of New York Mellon, which is about a $250 billion company, and my share of that was about $10 billion of global responsibilities. And I've set up 2 companies. That sounds great, doesn't it? Let's go back to where I started before I met Lois. I was a lifeguard, sailing instructor, and swimming instructor. That's where I started. Dad came down to the lifeguard booth, and he said, you got to go get yourself a real job. And I said, Dad, no real harm. And I was 16, 17, just turned 17. And so I went to an agency, temp agency, and they gave me the kind of test that temp agencies give you. You know, how fast can you type, blah, blah, blah. I was terrible. And this woman said to me, is there anything you can do? And I said, well, I tell you what, I'm pretty good at math. And I work hard. And that's how I got into IBM. And I'm sharing this with you in part to hitchhike on the other speakers here. But when I think about what's been difficult about my career, which has spanned these 2 big companies and setting up companies and being a lifeguard for heaven's sakes, everything's difficult. Is there anything that isn't difficult? It's all difficult. Every single day you go to work, there's some brick that's, waiting to bomb you on the head. And so I want to impart the following to you, because I thought of my good friend Lois and a program that Arcadia has, and something that will stand you in good stead. You don't even need to write it down. And that is, the predecessor is, that difficulty is part of life. It is part of work and school, for heaven's sakes. It's there no matter what. And it stinks sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't stink. So the 2 things we can do with it is, number 1, figure out what is a challenge and what's an opportunity. If it's an opportunity, seize it. I made my entire career based on difficulty. If it's a challenge, and this is where I think an advisory council with business school and what Arcadia is doing is very important. If it's a difficulty, that is a challenge, it's really, really important to have somebody to talk to. Don't go into it alone. Have a mentor. Have multiple people you can talk to outside of that situation who can be objective with you and say, you know what, I think you might be part of the problem, or, you know what, this is a problem, you choose to not be a part of solving. And so, I'm sorry I didn't answer your questions, Dr. Wilson, but I think the most important thing I have found, and I suspect everyone up here has found, and Lois too, running her company, is that the real people who stand out are the people who accept that difficulty is part of life and part of work, and who boldly know when to accept the difficulty and change it, and boldly know when to say, you know else might be better figuring that out. Time to move.
Thank you so much, Susan. Okay, Anthony, what advice would you give someone who is trying to excel in the business world?
Okay, well, when I got this email from Dean Wilson, I really wanted to be prepared, and I looked at the question, I'm like, this is an easy one. So I'm going to talk about it in three easy ways for you guys to remember. Some of my background is I run a tech co-working space called Benjamin's Desk in the city, where we have startups, teams, freelancers, launch teams like Uber, Lux, Fuda that work out of our space. So I'm privy to be around startup entrepreneurs every single day, 12 hours a day. So I started thinking, and it is kind of the right time of the month to drop a Bobby Knight quote. Some of you guys that are wearing basketball sweatshirts might be way too young, but Bobby Knight was a former Indiana Hoosiers head coach that I think everyone on this panel remembers. I'm not a big basketball fan. Part of my background is played professional soccer for 10 years. But there's one quote that stayed with me for a long while now. And it says, it's not just the will to win that matters. Everyone has that. It's the will to prepare to win. The will to prepare to win. And believe it or not, I think it was Bobby Knight's grandma who actually used to say that to him as a young man, that it really stuck with him. And I believe that with all my heart. So when I look at teams, when I look at early stage startups that are looking at their burn rate, looking at their money and saying, what type of team member should I have? The type of team member you want to be is someone that's prepared. In this day and age, there's no excuse not to be prepared. You can figure out anything you want to figure out. You can find the right person to ask a question to, pick their brain. You can Google almost anything. I see it with some of the talent in our space. Someone doesn't know how to build a website, they Google it, they figure it out. Someone doesn't know how to build an app that needs to be at an MVP level. Well, we'll build it on PowerPoint or Keynote. That's how possible it is. So not being prepared is inexcusable. Being prepared with data and information while you're plugged into a team of what's the competitive landscape, what's happening, what's relevant, not just in the city of Philadelphia, but throughout the country, throughout the world. Being prepared really, really matters. The other thing is position yourself, and as Dan was talking, I think positioning matters. Not just what you're doing, what you've done, but position yourself in that day-to-day with the attention to detail that you are indisposable. Do the little things. When I'm listening to Susan here, I got really excited because working hard makes sense. When we facilitate roundtables with entrepreneurs that are trying to raise a series of money and a series of capital as they're growing, one of the biggest things I hear is, of course, timing matters. But team, who's your team? Tell me about your team, not just the experience, because we know that matters, but what makes them investable, or what makes them have the ability to execute on what's going to happen. And when you're a founder, you can look down the line and say, let me tell you about this team member. This is why they're indisposable. This is why they're a part of my team. You got to position yourself early on to actually have someone point to you and own that. And it's true to the preparation. It's true to being detailed in the day-to-day. And when someone looks at you, whether it's your body language of how you walk, whether it's your verbal communication around what you're passionate about, those things have to be done the right way, time in, time out. And that makes you indisposable. And then there's a lesson my grandma taught me when I was young, that stayed with me as a former professional athlete, that I think makes sense on the field, but it absolutely makes sense in the work world, is whatever you're doing, you do it with all your heart. You do it to your best of your ability. You do it whether someone's looking or not looking. But when you do it with all your heart, passion comes out, and you usually execute. And you usually draws attention to you. I'll tell you what, that's a skill set that I still look for when I'm hiring. That's a skill set when we're managing and operating University of Penn, which is a $35 million incubator. That's the one skill I'm looking for. It's not the technical, not the hard skill that they understand how to run a CRM, but how are they with people? And how are they, as far as skill set goes, of doing the right thing and doing it with all their heart.
Thank you so much. Bill, last question. What are the biggest mistakes young people make in their job interview?
You, Dean Wilson. Great question, because as in my role at Microsoft over the last 17 years, I have interviewed hundreds and hundreds of graduates, some from Arcadia. As an Arcadia graduate, I really prefer Arcadia folks. When I looked at this question, I basically said, there's not a lot of time here, so what should I do? I should prioritize the answer. And I'm actually going to make a little bit of a flip on the answer because there's something that's really important that's not in the interview, and that's in the resume. And I'm not going to go into details of resume because you can all look that up on the web. What I found is what I call lazy resumes, which means you get a format from the web, you fill in your information, and you send it out to Monster or Indeed or whoever it is, and you expect thousands of people to get this, and you don't hear anything back. The right way to do that is to target a company and target a job and go to the company website. Many people don't realize this, but the company websites, especially the larger companies, the Googles, the Facebooks, and all of them, when you go to the job and you pick the city and you pick the job and you submit your resume, it goes to the hiring manager, not to HR who's overwhelmed and doesn't have time for all these thousands of resumes they're getting from these internet sites. So if you really want to do it, target your company, target the job, and send that resume. Now, you can do multiple jobs, and you'll get to the hiring managers of those jobs, as opposed to, at Microsoft, we were inundated by these web companies just sending thousands and thousands. HR is one of the smaller organizations in the company. They don't have time to do it. Those people's resumes never got looked at. So I'll start with the resume. Now let me move to the interview itself. And I'll categorize that. So we have the lazy resumes, and then we have the unprepared interviews. You should absolutely never, ever, ever go on an interview that you have not sat down and rehearsed with the worst, most critical friend that you have, one that picky you person that picks on everything it says. Find that person and have them sit down and interview over and over and over. And this is already mentioned, but you wouldn't believe how many times I've had an interviewee sitting in front of me and saying, and I did this like, and then I did that like, and then, I was like, stop doing that. So it's all those little things, and I'm making fun there, but when you videotape yourself, use your phone, and you look at that, you're going to go, oh, or I stalled here, or I got nervous. And if you just do that over and over and over again, have that person, that critical person, beat it out of you, and maybe on the fifth time, you're going to see it smooth out, and you're going to get good at it. And all of a sudden, you're going to start doing really good interviews with confidence. And, so they're the areas there. So it's really around preparation. You've heard that already. Same thing happens with an interview. If you really want it, and you prepare and you rehearse, you're going to get the job, because what the executives have said, and again, I call on the top 100 firms in the world at Microsoft. I'm retired now. Every one of those companies I went to, the CEOs, I met with global CEOs of all those companies, every single one of them said, we want to hire the best and brightest graduates today, because they're trying to feed the company. They got a bunch of people that have been around a long time, they're not innovative, and they're not taking chances. They want to bring in the new graduates. You guys are in great shape. With each company is telling their management teams, I want to hire the best and brightest graduates. So get yourselves out there, and I think you'll do great. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Bill. Let me tell you that it was Bill and I teamed up to help a student last year, Jake Pearlstein. And Jake came to me last January and said, you know what, Dr. Wilson, I'm going to be graduating in May, but I have no idea what I want to do when I graduate. I said, okay, well, where would you like to work? What kind of environment would you like to work? So the first thing he said was Google and Facebook. Okay, so I said, then apply. And he goes, oh, come on. There's like only 3 in a million get an interview at Google. I'm never going to get an interview. So what I did is I called Bill and I said, would you talk to Jake, let him know what's going on, kind of sense where he is and how he might fit into Google. Well, Bill called me back a couple days later and he goes, he's incredible. He's going to be able to do it. Between the two of us, we really coached him, helped him, provided him with the support, the emotional support that he needed. And guess what? On the day he graduated, May this past year, he got an offer from Google. And he's out in California and happy as a lark, and actually just got a promotion. So, thank you.
One quick thing, because I don't know if I run into this with Jay. I ran into this, thanks to Dean Wilson. I was able to do 2 presentations to students on jobs and how to get them. And I ran into this scenario which kind of surprised me, and now I've added it to my presentation, which is, if you're going up against a student from Harvard or Stanford, or you pick the school, and you're interviewing for the same job, do you feel that you have a disadvantage there? And one of the times the dean was with me, in one of the presentations, I asked her to see hands. And hands went up, including from professors, saying, yes, you have a disadvantage. Fact of the matter is you don't. And this was actually addressed earlier. It's the person that every one of these companies is looking at. They want high energy, reliable, you're going to show up, you're going to do the job, you fit into the team, and you've heard that over and over. They don't really care where you went to school. They want to make sure you went to school and then you did well. So keep your grades up, because grades are, you talked about things you can put on your resume. If you don't have jobs, grade shows work. And so if you don't show grades, you're not working. So that was the last thing. I want to take that elephant in the room out of the room. It does not matter. I was really happy because after I did the presentation, the vice president of Google's HR came out on a CNN interview, and they asked him, why don't you just go to Stanford, Harvard, and hire? He said the best people aren't there, because they're not. They're here. Sorry for going on.
Oh,
Thanks.
that's great. And one of the things that I think a lot of you mentioned was interviewing. And we have an agreement with Quincia, where they do interviewing on the internet. They have jobs that you can apply for, then you actually apply for it. And then artificial intelligence creates questions for you. So we're going to be doing that with all our students. And I see Meg Nolan here. Have you tried that?
We're going to be doing it in an internship class.
Yeah. But I think one of the things that I truly believe in is that practice makes perfect. So whether it's going to the Office of Career Education, whether it's doing the online interviewing, you really have to look at and evaluate how people perceive you, because that's going to make a real big difference. I think all of you will agree to that. Okay. Now, we've got a couple of minutes to ask a few questions. Does anybody have any questions?
It's not a shy bunch.
Yeah.
Outside of the obvious, the job, work experience, stuff like that, is there ever anything of interest on a resume that just piques an interest or makes you kind of curious to see the person in person to ask them about it?
For me, it's 501c3 stuff, it's languages, it's travel, that type of stuff, because that's where you get more of the personality of the person, not necessarily skills, more of a flavor that one. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you able to hear me? So yeah, I think any of those things, whether it's, big brother, big sister, any of that type of stuff really tells more of a skill, more of traits of your personality.
One thing we didn't talk about, and I think everybody up here has hired a lot of people, is how important the homework assignment is for you. It's not just the resume, and I am delighted to hear about videotaping and rehearsing and with your worst friend, absolutely. But let me offer something that is done and done very effectively, and that is the homework. So, for example, you decide you want to be a banker. Nobody wants to be a banker anymore, and please, I've been there. But if you did want to be a banker, you say, who do I know? And you say, wasn't there that lady at that town hall who did something banking you would know? You've got to capture those moments and take those names down and keep that list, and when you go to apply, work that network so that when the resume comes in, the first thing that Dan sees is somebody that Dan knows suggested, I get in touch with you, Dan. And what Dan's going to do is he's going to call whomever, and he's going to say, who's this? And hopefully you will pick the right person who will say, I have no idea. Doing the homework to develop the network, and you have to go 5 and 6 layers out. Your family's friends, your friends' friends. This guy, young man, is at Google. I mean, he's probably going to be inundated by Arcadia resumes. But don't forget that, because that does make you stand out, because so many people don't have anything. Do you guys have anything to add?
I mean, I think that's spot on. Again, looking through the lens of a startup entrepreneur, anytime they're raising money, we ask to make sure it's the right fit. Customize your pitch to who you're speaking to. That means position yourself in your resume building not just the day before, to tweak a couple words in your intro letter or your cover letter. Position yourself early on, a month out, 2 months out, talk with different people in that industry, position yourself, and it's easy to do. I don't think it's a numbers game of putting your resume out there 100 times in the same resume. I think it's really customizing the resume and putting yourself out there so it makes a little bit more sense.
Just throw it in.
I can't, or you shouldn't underestimate the power of networks. And you might look at a position in a company, you say, well, I don't really know anybody, and my family doesn't know anybody. But if you think long and hard enough, if you look at the board of trustees or their board members, there's got to be someone that you know that knows somebody that can really make a contact for you within that company and set you up so that you have a good listening. Well prepared, no doubt, but that you have a good listening once you walk in that front door. So I just reiterate, don't underestimate the power of building and accessing your networks.
There will be a question in every interview that's something like how many Facebook users are online on Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock. And then they shut up. Now, by the way, if you have 2 interviewers, you're going to have a good guy, bad guy. I don't want to offer time. They pick which one they want to be. But one's going to be attacking you and one's going to be nice. If you're with one interview, they're usually nice. What happens when you get a question like that? Microsoft was famous because they used to say, why is a manhole cover 55 inches? And then they would just shut up and look at it. And those questions, do not worry about the answer because the answer doesn't matter. What you have to think to yourself is, and do this in the preparation, by the way, get that person that is really critical, have them make up a question that's impossible, just throw at you somewhere in the way. Because they're looking at how you think through how you would answer that question. So if you, for example, just so you understand what I'm saying, if you say to them, well, I don't have that data right now, but to answer your question, what I would first do is I would go get the data on how many Facebook users there are per whatever, and I would pull that data and I would take a look at Fridays and I would say, oh, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, kids are still in school. That's thought process. And that's exactly what they're looking for, is because if you're in a customer meeting with one of their big customers and they ask you a hard question, you freak. But if you're somebody that can think through, here's how I'm going to do the answer, and I'm going to get this back to you, and always close. And I'll have it back to you by this coming Friday or whatever. Those questions can be really varied. Don't let them freak you. They don't care about the answer. What they want to know is how you think through it. If you solve a problem, if a customer starts screaming at you, what are you going to do? You're going to go, I'm running. You can't run. I did that once, but I won't do it again. So it's really the thought process that you have to worry about. And I just wanted to add that because I'm listening to the folks here, and we're all jumping on each other because these are really good points. But that's one thing that could throw you if you weren't prepared for it.
One more question? Yes.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marissa Teach. I'm the Director of Career Education. Thank you so much for your insights today. We're having a big career fair on Wednesday of next week, and I was hoping you could give some advice to the students in the room about how to make a great first impression at a career fair.
This is so you're doing this with employers at a career day?
Yes, we have 95 companies coming, some graduate schools, and it'll be in the gymnasium, so students will be there, and just tips for success and how to make
How much time do they get?
that great impression.
How much time would they get with it? Is it going table to table?
3-hour event, so you figured they'll talk to probably 10 to 15 organizations, I would guess, maybe 3 to 4 minutes at each.
Yeah, if you add up everything you just heard and put that in a package, that's probably right, because if they're coming across as confident and showing experience and talk about their grades or classes, all the things you've heard today, I think were there. Anybody have a specific?
Just to get started, I would suggest you pick maybe 4 or 5 companies you'd really like to talk to, and 2 you really don't want to work for. And you start with the 2 you don't want to work for to get your game going. Okay, warm up. Okay. Everybody with me on this one? Okay, and the 5 you'd really like to work for, prioritize them. And figure out whether you're a morning person or an evening person. You don't, should the first one be the one you want most, or the last one be the one you want most? Because you will get better the more you do this, and then you rehearse like crazy. You absolutely rehearse like crazy. so that if they give you 3 minutes, it doesn't take you 3 minutes. It takes you 2 minutes, at the end of which you say, I am really interested in your company. May I ask you a question about your company? Do you realize how many people don't do that? But it'll make you stand out.
I back all of that. And the other thing is this is it's almost like speed dating. It really is. I mean, it's for a job, right? And think of it that way because you want this to be a relationship between whoever you're interviewing for. So the idea of knowing who you want to work for makes a lot of sense before you do it. But it's just straight. Your best face on, make sure you weren't out drinking last night, get your hair combed and a suit on, and that's really what it is because the first impression is going to be yourself. It's yourself. And then you're going to start firing off. So make sure you've got your skills lined up, just like Phil has said, and you guys will do fine. And I hope you all go there and have some success.
Here. I was just going to mention follow-up is just as important after getting that initial meeting. So don't forget to follow up.
And I'll add enthusiasm and ending it with, I'm really interested in your company. I would really like to have the opportunity to work with you. I can't tell you how much that means when we interview co-op students and interns and say, well, why did you choose the World Trade Center of Greater Philadelphia? And that really tells me a lot of their discipline, the homework that they've done, and also their interest in working for my organization. So I think conveying that enthusiasm, the knowledge of the company is very important.
Sure. We just started a dev shop called Benjamin's Dev, and we sent one of my lieutenants out to one of the Drexel University student get-togethers. And one of the things that really stuck out for him, he had a pile of resumes that he took home with him, and obviously they were all looking the same, 1 or 2 pages. The one thing that stood out to him was one kid pitched him, and actually he had an iPad mini, and actually instead of giving him something, he went through 4 slides. This is who I am. This is why I think I'm a good fit for your company. And actually pitched them as if he was an investor. And then right away, he said, well, can I get your email so I can send it right to your top of your inbox? So little things like that stood out. And I remember just getting the report from him of his takeaways and the lessons learned. But he talked about that more than anything else, about this young guy who just pitched them, showed his work. He knew he was going after Benjamin's Dev to some degree because he was a technologist. But that really left a mark and made him stand out.
Well, I want to thank everyone, first for coming to this event, and secondly, the advisory council members for their great advice. I think if you take some of this information, you will be successful. Now you can also see why I chose them as well. They're bright, they're engaging, they're great people, and so thank you again for being here. We appreciate that.